So, Andy, how did you get into football? Is the first question.
I got into football probably by default, really. I know this sounds really stupid, and it's probably a cliche that you probably hear a few times. But me and my brother Neil's a little bit older than me. He's 2 years older than me, and we were doing my mum's editing a little bit. My dad worked away at the time, and so she took us down to Martin Juniors on a Saturday morning just to get us out the house, and we both went there training. But they didn't have a junior setup like they do now. You know what I mean? The teams, obviously, things weren't set up in the way they are now. Yeah. So we went training on a Saturday, and then the following Saturday, etc. And they started the team up. Because I was too young, Neil joined the team, and I just went training. They just let me go training just to keep me out of trouble. And I just found out that I was pretty good at it. I was faster than a lot of other people who were obviously 2 or 3 years above me. And yeah, I think it did me the world of good. You know what I mean? It got me out. It got me in the fresh air. We walked to training, which was probably only a couple of miles, but still walked back and just give me a little bit of responsibility. It was nice to it's just nice to get out and do something, you know, and find out you're good at something. And obviously 2 years down the line, I think they then developed a team each year, and so they started my team, and I played for Martin Juniors all the way through till I left. I think until when I was 15-year-old, I stayed until.
You were born in Middlesbrough. It must have been a special moment for you and your family when you made your debut for your hometown club. Can you talk us through how you felt making your debut at the Riverside Stadium against Sheffield Wednesday?
Oh, listen, it's everybody's dream to play football, but to play football for your hometown club, that year was even more special. I just left Derson Park. You know, I grew up on the terraces watching with my dad and watching my heroes Bernie Slavin and John Hendry and obviously Brian Robson the following season, and then seeing people like Jan Fjordhoff being brought in and Craig Hignett, etc. And just to get the opportunity to train was a big deal. And then to be called into the squad that day, it was an Easter Good Friday game against Sheffield Wednesday, the live Sky Sports game, and I remember the manager told me, 15 minutes to go, get warmed up, you're coming on, and so stripped off, ready to come on, and it took an eternity to get kicked out of player. And I just remember the gaffer ended up telling Steve Vickers to kick it out. You know what I mean? Screamed at him in the end, just kick the ball out, and got me on, and it was nice. Yeah, I think I got 8 minutes, including the injury time. It was great. It was really good to just to sample the atmosphere. You know, I played at the Riverside in reserve games and in the Youth Cup that year, and which was unbelievable experience, but nothing ever gets you ready for that moment. And the fans were great as well. That's one thing that I've always said all along, that the fans got me, had my back a little bit. You know what I mean? I don't think I get the ball away that day, but moving on in my career and playing as many games as I did for the club, they always give me that extra little bit of leeway. If I get the ball away, they wouldn't get me back. If I played well, they tell me so. And it was nice. They were good, really good supporters, really.
Question off the back of that, obviously you were told you were going to get in the squad. It was live on Sky. Obviously back then it was different technology, but did you tape it?
I've got a videotape of it. I've still got the videotape now, and I've converted it to DVD, but I've still got the videotape. And Sky gave me the videotape, and I've obviously spoken to Richard Keys since about various things. It always comes up that he got me it through somebody else, and so it's a proper VHS videotape with the date and you know what I mean. So it's proper old school, but it's something that you know what I mean. Back in the day, you know, in '96, you know what I mean. It was they didn't even use any other technology, you know, which is a good thing. Yeah, but managed to get a really good copy as well. It wasn't just taped by mum and dad because they did tape it, but it was got a proper copy from Sky, which was nice.
Yeah. So the following season, and Boro were relegated on the final day. But earlier in the campaign, there was like an illness go round the camp against Blackburn, and you failed to, well, not failed, but you told them that you couldn't fulfil the fixture, and you got a 3-point deduction. Now, I am actually a Coventry fan. I'm not saying this to rub it in, but I mean, obviously we stopped up on the final day. But how much of a bitter pill to swallow was that for you?
Massive, because I was one of the ones who was ready to go. We were on the bus ready to go on the Friday, and we were going to travel up to Blackburn and go to the hotel ready to go. And it was about 2:00 in the afternoon that we got told that the chief executive at the time, Keith Lamb, told us that the Premier League had advised us not to go. We didn't have to go. We didn't have to fulfil the fixture. We would play it at another time, and that wasn't the case in the end. And obviously, we tried in vain to get those points back from the FA. We tried in vain on the pitch to get those points back in the right way. We didn't end up playing the Blackburn game again, which was probably the biggest disappointment, that we weren't able to go and fight for those 3 points again, which, listen, you know what I mean? I think it set a precedent for any other club to do that. You know what I mean? So I think for the love of football, I think it probably was a strong outcome, and probably the best outcome, because you can't not turn up to games. But as a Middlesbrough player and a Middlesbrough fan and a current player at the time. Yeah, it was difficult because I've heard the stories of who we were going to bring in the following season if we weren't getting relegated. You know what I mean? The manager had Janino at the time. He was on about bringing Roberto Carlos and Ronaldo in and people like that. And listen, you know, if that's true, then you know what I mean. I hate the FA even more. You know, so it's it was a difficult time at the time because. But I think as a player, development wise, I didn't play a lot of football that year. So development wise for me personally, to get relegated and play more football and be classed as a first team player, it probably did me a little bit of good getting relegated and playing in a tough league. I know we didn't win the league the following year, Nottingham Forest did, but I think it gave me a little bit of grounding. We played against some good sides. We brought Paul Merson in, so brought some very good players in again. So you know what I mean? For me, I think it was, developmental. I think it was very good for me personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in that same season, your Boro team got to the FA Cup final. What was it like being in around the club and the town on the way to the final?
Oh, electric! You know I look back at the FA Cup run, the League Cup runs, and all the cup runs that we had. And Brian Robson always did one thing. I look at the sides now who put weakened sides out. He always put the strong side out. When we played Hendersford, when we played Chester City, when we played all these sides, we put Ravanelli out up front. We put Janino up front. You know what I mean? We had Mikkel Beck. We had the top players in. And if we got a place on the bench and we got some minutes, then you know what I mean, we were very lucky to do so. So when we got to Wembley, you know what I mean, the town was buzzing. You know what I mean, give us an opportunity. We hadn't really had a very good track record at Wembley. You know what I mean? Obviously, I'm going back years ago when I went as a fan the first time when we played Chelsea, got beat. Obviously, the Emil Heskey last-minute goal in the League Cup. So, you know, I mean, this was an opportunity to really cement some history at the club. And I was very unlucky not to be in the squad. I was 17th man, so I was a bit gutted. So I don't know what I normally did before a game if I wasn't playing and seeing the players. And then, obviously, the walk from the tunnel to my seat was quite away. By the time I got my seat, sat down, looked at the scoreboard, we were already getting beat 1-0. So it was a nightmare, really. You know, that I turned out to my dad and said, "Are we getting beat? Is that wrong? Is that right?" I mean, I said, "Oh, don't ask." You know what I mean? So it was like from bad to worse personally. You know what I mean? Because listen, every footballer wants his side to do well. You know what I mean? But I was disappointed not to be involved. But I was so much of a fan. I wanted them to do well at Wembley, and you know, I mean, that cup final went from bad to worse. Early goal, Rav pulling his hamstring, and then losing, and then the influx of players leaving straight after. So it was a bad couple of weeks, really.
Andy, we've got to talk about that goal against Manchester United. Your future was obviously lying elsewhere, but you made the squad. You come on as a sub against the reigning Premier League champions, and your goal secured a 2-0 win. Talk us through your emotions when you saw the ball hit the back of the net.
Just I think it was more pure joy that I'd had a rough couple of weeks. Obviously, new manager came in, Steve McLaren, and me and Steve didn't really see eye to eye. Obviously, his plans for the future were different to mine. You know, he didn't really see me as part of his plans and part of the future of the club. So it was disappointing for me. So I knew my future was lying away from Middlesbrough Football Club. So I'd spoke to Aberdeen, I'd spoke to a few other clubs, and I was ready to move here, there, and everywhere. And obviously, I'd already had initial talks to Lenny at Cardiff. So it was something which was rumbling in the background. So when I get the opportunity to play for Middlesbrough, I jumped through hoops, you know. So to get that opportunity against Man United was brilliant. Saturday morning game against the best team in the world, and to get the opportunity and to score a goal was just something special. And yeah, it was obviously my last goal for the football club at the Riverside. It didn't really get much better, and it was really, you know, I mean, and I'm so glad that I got the opportunity to do it because it was a little bit of a swan song, a little bit of a like a goodbye and a chance for me to give something back to the supporters because some players don't get that opportunity. Some players aren't that lucky, and sometimes just leave out the back door, so to speak. But at least I left with a real good memory and left on a massive high, really.
So moving on to your brief loan spell at Bolton under Big Sam.
Yeah.
What was he like to play under? And have you got any stories about him that you can share?
I've been listening. He was very different, very old school, but then at the same time, he was very into the 21st century already. You know that his knowledge in recovery, his knowledge in sports science was something that I'd never ever even dreamt was ever going to come into football. Never mind the Premier League, because obviously in the Championship League One at the time. So for him to have these adverse ideas, which were obviously working, because obviously he took his Bolton side up to a very good position. He brought me in to help with his promotion push, which obviously accumulated in the season and got promoted. I saw Sam as someone who was quite calm. You know, I see him now. He's quite big, quite angry, quite. You know what I mean? But at the time when he was a little bit younger and he's having a bit of success, he was calm. I remember one game though he wasn't calm. I think we played Gillingham. We were 2-0 up. I think we ended up drawing 3-3 or 2-2. It was quite early in my loan spell at home at the Reebok, and he came in. I've never ever been so scared in my entire life. When he started screaming, I absolutely wet myself. I just jumped. I didn't know what to do. And listen, I was in a quite surreal position when I was at Bolton because I stayed at the hotel which is attached to the stadium. So my bedroom, my bedroom window was overlooking the ground. So. You know, when I got back to my hotel room, opened the window, saw the ground, reminded me of what's just gone on, reminded me of Big Sam because he was still walking on the pitch. He must have just been trying to calm down, and I'm just thinking, oh my God, you know what I mean? Like, I hope he doesn't see me looking at him. So straight away, 6 o'clock in the night, I'm just shutting my curtains and just going to bed and hiding in case he just knocked on my door. You know, I was just like, this wasn't my fault either, by the way. This is just, but it just showed for me. I saw something in him and Phil Brown, and thought, you know what, these two guys have got an opportunity to do well in football. You know what I mean? If they can bring this success to a club and they've got these ideas, imagine if they're given an opportunity. And obviously Big Sam, his experience, his quality is second to none. You know what I mean? He's back in the Premier League now. Yes, probably struggling, but being England manager, he's kept so many clubs up. What he's done at Bolton, he should be an absolute hero. You know what I mean? The statue for what his success he brought there. So it's, you know what I mean? But no, he's a top fellow as well. You know what I mean? I think he gets a lot of bad press about his off-field antics and what's gone on with certain things, and probably rightly so. But you know what I mean, for people who knows him in house, yeah, he's a genuinely top fella, really.
In 2002, you moved to Cardiff, who at the time were playing at Ninian Park. Now I went to Ninian Park, and as an away fan, it was intimidating. What was it like to play there?
Intimidating. It was scary. Listen, it's not a nice place to go and play football. It's very old school. The pitch is on a slope. The fans are very hostile, even for the home players. But it keeps you on edge. It keeps you going. And I don't think I've ever come across one opposing supporter, one opposing player manager who enjoys or has enjoyed going to Ninian Park. Even if we've won, there's something's happened after the game. If it's the abuse they've got going back on the bus, if it's the abuse they've been getting during the game, and it shows the care sometimes, you know, and it's a kind of reputation which has kept Cardiff City with a bit of success, really. You know that when I went there, I knew the supporters were passionate. I knew they were hostile. I knew, obviously, I watched the Leeds game on the TV because I was supposed to sign the following week. So it was something for me to watch, and I've never seen an atmosphere like it. And I thought, you know what, if they can generate that for the rest of the season, then we're on to a good one. We'll get promoted, and accumulated. Obviously, we didn't do Stoke City and stuff, but yeah, it was. There's been a very few and far between atmospheres that I've seen in Ninian Park. You know, the Leeds game, which I watched on TV, which everyone says was the best atmosphere there. But you spoke earlier about the Stoke City game in the playoffs. You know what I mean? That I think we were about 40 seconds away from getting to Wembley or getting the playoff final, and James O'Connor scored a free kick, and it was just, listen, I've never witnessed anything like it. After the game, it was probably like a war zone. You know what I mean? It was just, but that's because people were emotionally drained, high. You know what I mean? It was just, it wasn't a very nice place to be that night.
Did you ever play against Swansea there?
But not in a league game, because Swansea, and this isn't me rubbing it in, by the way. Swansea weren't in a great position football wise. They were at the bottom of the pyramid. They nearly went out of business. I think that year I signed, but at the time the Welsh Cup was quite a big cup. It put teams into Europe, so we played them in their quarter final once in Ninian Park, and it was full. You know what I mean? It was like a nothing game, but it was absolutely, it was a sellout. It was quite regimental. You know what I mean? The amount of police, I've never seen the amount of police at a football match in all my entire life. You know what I mean? Police were right up to the touchline. You know what I mean? When you're taking a corner, when you're running, you know what I mean? When centre forward run the channel, the police were just there. It was just fluorescent yellow jackets everywhere. It was quite scary, really. But because Cardiff won, it was probably the best outcome for everybody.
Yeah.
Whilst at Cardiff, you did secure promotion to the Championship with a win over QPR in the playoff finals, with you scoring the only goal to decide it. Have you ever had to buy a drink in Cardiff ever again after that?
No, it's funny, you know, that I've been back. I've probably been back about 10 times since. You know what I mean? It was 17 years ago, and I remember we went out on the Tuesday. It was a Sunday game. We went out on the Tuesday. None of the players, we had to buy a drink all day. You know, we went out on the drink at 12 o'clock after training, because we'd all been in with doing stuff, and none of us had to buy a drink all night. You know what I mean? It was such a good time, and every time I go back, it's just amazing. I went back the time they got promoted against Ipswich a couple of years ago with Neil Warnock, and And one of my friends asked me to go and meet him in Costa on the morning of the game. So I got in the car early morning, drove to meet him, and went to Costa. Nobody there, and I'm thinking, what's going on? So he rang me, said, I've had to change it. There's a few people who want to meet you, and drove down the road about half a mile, and there was about 2,000 people outside this pub, and I pulled over. The police were there, and I just said, if there's anywhere where I can park my car. And he said, oh, sorry, jump out. I'll get in. I'll just sit in it while you're in there. I'm thinking, what's going on here? You know what I mean? Like, it's the most like surreal thing in the world. So I'm thinking, is this a joke? Is he a real policeman? You know what I mean? So he jumped in my car, sat outside the pub while I went in and met me. I thought I was just meeting my friend for a coffee, and I had a bit of a chit chat. But went in there. There was just this was 8 o'clock in the morning, by the way. In Cardiff, we're kicking off at 3. And there's fans who must have been in there about 2.5 hours. They were half cut. They'd had a good time singing songs, just enjoying themselves. And it's just nice to be remembered for something that you've done. You know, listen, there's one thing that I always did when I played, is that's to run around and tried. You know, I was never portrayed myself to be a technically very good player. You know what I mean? There were certain things that I wasn't very good at, but the one thing I did is run around, and that's what Cardiff fans really bought into. You know, and then when you can score a goal on a big occasion, you get held in quite high esteem. And people said after the game, they'll never forget. And you think, yeah, good one. They're just saying that, you know, I've just left, you know, and they always say that to make you feel better. But no, they've never forgot. It's probably more famous now, 17, 18 years down the line, than it was back in 2003.
I'm right in saying that game, the playoff final, was actually in Cardiff as well, wasn't it? So that must have been special. Yeah,
well, it made it even better, and I think it better for the fans more than anybody. You know what I mean? Because I remember the journey from where we stayed in a hotel to the Millennium Stadium, and we were treated like heroes. You know what I mean? But then we knew the pressure. You know, I remember the bell before a game. You know, it goes off about 5 to 3, and we stayed in a bit longer. We just composed ourselves a little bit more. We made sure that we understood what we were leaving, and what we couldn't afford to lose. You know, I mean, we've been there last year. We lost to Stoke, and we all knew, because it was a similar amount of players. We all knew what happened that night, and how bad we felt, and made sure that it wasn't going to happen again. And it nearly happened again. You know what I mean? Because there was it was touch and go. It was a horrible game. It wasn't a very nice game to play in and watching and things. But we got there in the end, and the celebrations after, in the changing room, on the pitch, in town, it was just surreal, amazing.
So straight up question: personal favourite goal, United or QPR?
Listen, occasion wise, it would be the QPR one, but favourite goal against United, because United are the best team in the world, and I don't score many headers as well. So it's to score a header in the FA Cup. And the FA Cup's been really nice to me. You know what I mean? I've been really lucky as a player, as a fan, as a manager. You know what I mean? I've been very lucky to sample the FA Cup at various levels, and so I've got to say that, because it just meant so much. And it was my last goal for Middlesbrough as well. And you know what I mean? I don't think you realise that. I didn't realise that until yesterday. That I realised, thinking that's my last goal for Middlesbrough. You just think, sometimes you take these things for granted.
Yeah, definitely. I love the FA Cup. You know, it gave my club the best day of its career. Well, existence. It's just, and I'm glad to see, you know, the likes of Man City treated with respect nowadays. But that's another story for another day.
I definitely love the FA Cup. It's given me some of the best days of my life. So
yeah, but it does. And listen, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going back as a kid, and I'm probably talking about the Coventry game. You know what I mean? That Coventry Spurs, when watching St Greavesy and watching all the goals from round 1 up to semi-final. You know what I mean? The whole day watching the players get changed in the hotel and making the way that it meant so much to me. It got me thinking, I want to be part of this day. I want to be part of this kind of run up. So you know what I mean? The third round becomes important, because without the third round, the finals are irrelevant. Because if you don't turn up, you don't put your best side out. You know what I mean? You've got no chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. So just moving on to your later playing days, you struggled a lot with injuries, and I believe the last club that you played for, you ended up back in the North East with Whitby Town. Did you sort of know that it was time to hang up your boots and move more into coaching and management?
Yeah, I think I knew probably a year and a half, 18 months before that. I think when I was playing for Halifax Town, I just knew something wasn't right. You know, I was picking up some horrific injuries and coming back and thinking, you know what, I'm sick of being on the treatment table. I want to get back out on training, and even probably the advice of physios who were very good friends of mine, and telling me that leave it another week, 10 days, 2 weeks, thinking rubbish. You know what I mean? I want to be back out there, and I feel good. And you know, I mean, people can only go on what I'm telling them, And then obviously being told by people that you can't do it every day, you can't train every day. So I thought, well, I can't be a professional footballer and not train every day. So then I thought, well, do you know what? Semi-professional footballer, you know, I mean, they don't train every day. They don't play. You know, if they're playing midweek games, they probably don't train. So I went down that route, and I probably struggled even more because, you know what I mean, it was, my body was probably trained and used to training every day, and then doing it, and with the lack of training, just turning up to games, I was struggling a little bit more, picking up even stupider injuries or more often, and then just thinking, do you know what, it's it. And I remember, I just remember just halfway through the season, one season, I just said, you know what, that's it. You know what I mean? I wasn't one for thinking, listen, I'm gonna drag this out to the rest of the season and get paid for it. I was, you know, listen, I'd rather just look after my body. You know, I had a young child at the time, and thinking, I want to be able to play football with her, and I want to be able to do things with my kids, and I want to be able to exercise with them all. This stuff for me, it's a no-brainer just to pack in and then see what else is out there. You know.